Hi, everyone. There we go. My name is Dimple Sani, and I've been a longtime impact investor, both personally and professionally. Currently, I work at Anthos Fund and Asset Management. It's a single-family office based in the Netherlands. But I've been a jury member for the Cartier Women's Initiative for the past 2 years. So it's in that capacity that I'm going to give my feedback today. And I was a female entrepreneur myself, a social entrepreneur in the late 90s. So it's interesting to see some things haven't changed, but some things have changed. And I look forward to exploring more from both vantage points over the course of the session. Thanks, Minji.
Great. Thank you, Dimple. Welcome. Andrea, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrea Barber, CEO and co-founder of Rated Power, and we are on a mission to accelerate the energy transition by developing deep tech solutions to carry out the design, the engineering, and the optimization of renewable energy plants. We develop a software called PV Design to instantly carry out the design and engineering of solar energy plants in just a few minutes. And we operate worldwide. We started in 2017, and we are 50 people in the team now.
Fantastic. Thank you, Andrea. Welcome. And Jennifer? Oh, you're on mute.
Hi, I am Jennifer. I am the CEO and founder of Develop Diverse. Briefly, my background is in chemistry. I have done a PhD developing tech platforms for addressing within the biomedical field. And I used to use technology to accelerate the process of finding new drugs to address different types of diseases. And 5 years ago, I decided to start Develop Diverse to use my expertise in tech to accelerate the process of closing the diversity gap. Develop Diverse vision is to normalize diversity. And the way we do it is by helping companies increase the diversity numbers and also help them retain diverse talent. And we do that by ensuring they have an inclusive communication through the whole organization. And for that purpose, we offer them a software that works like a spell checker, but rather than checking for spelling mistakes, checks for biased language and propose inclusive alternatives. And at the same time, educates the user on what their own unconscious biases are through the language they type every day. And today we were founded in 2017, and we are going to become 30 people by Q1 next year. That's our aim.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jennifer. Next, Olga, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello, everyone. My name is Olga. I'm a practicing psychologist and entrepreneur. I'm a CEO of Alter. Alter is a science-based service that matches people with credentialed psychotherapists, providing access to help for clients and a turnkey solution for professionals. Alter was founded in 2017 and currently is operating for the Russian-speaking market. Alter's mission is to make safe and effective therapy accessible to everyone.
Fantastic. Welcome, Olga. Thank you so much for joining us. So before I start our session talking about the women impact entrepreneurs and their quest for resources, I wanted to share with everyone that if you have any questions throughout our talk, please feel free to join us and type in your questions in the chat box, and I will integrate them during our conversation. We certainly hope that this can be an interactive conversation with everybody, so feel free to do that, and I will try my best to integrate the questions. And so a quick note on the Cartier Women Initiative. We are an initiative that's founded by Cartier in the year 2006. And we have been running the program, which is an international program for women impact entrepreneurs. Our vision is a world in which every woman impact entrepreneur can reach her full potential. And we're hoping to leverage business as a force for good to solve a series of the UN SDG goals. And so today we're so happy to be joined by 3 of our fellows in our program, and of course also Dimple, our community member, who has been on the jury with us. And in this conversation, we hope to share with everybody a bit about the real life stories and challenges that woman entrepreneur faces, and also opportunities as a woman impact entrepreneurs. And then also on the flip side, hear from Dimple also as an investor on what she sees from her perspective. And so without further ado, maybe I will start with Andrea first, and on the entrepreneurship side, on sort of really what is the motivation behind finding your business and having impact at its core?
So my motivation is that I live my passion on a daily basis, and I know that my company is making a positive impact on society, and this is an extremely powerful source of motivation. I started the business because my co-founders and I identified problems and frustrating issues in the renewable energy industry that we suffered. We were suffering the pain in our skin, and we then tried to solve that problem. We wanted to do something meaningful. We want to put our energy and our effort into something to make the world a better place. And it's interesting because specifically in renewable energies, if we look at the gender from the corporate standpoint, the renewable energy sector has shown that it attracts more women compared to other conventional power sources, conventional sources. And it's because women generally have more awareness of climate change, and we feel that we want to contribute in another in a different measure in impact companies and positive impact endeavors.
Great. And Jennifer, how about you? How did you, what was your motivation originally to start your business? Oh, you're on mute.
I keep forgetting that. I hear you so clearly. I keep forgetting that. So I myself grew up in a traditional gender role family where women were expected to take care of the house in addition to their full-time job, but being the responsible of the household and the family, while the men have been the one responsible just to work. And so those are struggles I experienced since I was very young, and I carry on with me. I believe they were the drivers for me to explore other cultures, other countries, and also focus on a career where actually was male dominated, so that I could change that by myself. But obviously, myself, I could get to so many. It was not a scalable way to change the diversity numbers by me talking to women. So my career in tech has helped me to learn enough so that I could build a tech solution to close the diversity gap, the gender gap, which has been for me very something that is very important since I remember. Changing the numbers. I'm like, since I was a child until now, when I was looking, I was myself in a good career place, a good salary, and I could see the numbers have not changed. I could see my struggles myself. I could see the struggles around my own friends having children, and I couldn't wait one more second to let things solve by themselves, but rather wanted to take the solution myself. And that's what made me to understand what's the science behind the bottlenecks of diversity in organizations, why the stereotypes we have them, we don't unlearn the stereotypes, and what's then the way to teach people about the stereotypes so that they can become aware and unlearn them, so that we do not judge people by how do they look like, but rather their talent they have, something that we cannot see when we don't understand diversity, when we do not understand that we have stereotypes. So it's very deep into my heart, changing the numbers, and that's what made me start, and not care about how can it be, how it's going to be the career, but rather starting and then trying to change the numbers from day one. And I want to see the changes myself. I don't want to wait a few hundred years for that.
Great. Yes. I know people are often surprised when I share with them the 200-year stat. Olga, how about you? What was the motivation for you founding your business?
I'll start with my personal experience. I needed to find a psychologist for myself, and I ended up going to 5 therapists before I finally found the one who really made a difference for me. Sorry. For the first time, I saw mental health from the patient's perspective, how frustrating it was, and how easy it could be for someone outside of the industry to despair and give up. But then I've realized that if finding the right professional was difficult for me, a trained psychologist, how much how much more difficult would it be for others. and I decided that I want to make it easier for other people, help them to find a professional that really matches their profile easily.
Great. Oh, bless you. Dimple, maybe you can share with us a bit from an investor perspective. How did you start it considering investing in impact, and also, yeah, what have you seen amongst women impact entrepreneurs and their motivation for starting their business?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, I was an impact entrepreneur. Well, today I would have called myself a social entrepreneur. I started an ed tech company. And like many of these women, and by the way, I want to applaud all three of the women here because one, I've seen all their business plans. So they're part of the European cohort. But to address climate change in the year of, when COP is happening, diversity and inclusion in the last year when racial and social justice and biases came to the surface, as well as mental health, which all of us are, I think, dealing with at some level. I couldn't think of three more relevant business models for great entrepreneurs, but specifically female entrepreneurs to start. So I had experienced fundraising as a social entrepreneur with 5 male co-founders. And I remember reading the room. And even though I built the financial model and I was the one that had come from a background in finance at Goldman Sachs, and I was helping spearhead the fundraising, I saw how some of the VCs were a little deferential and really spoke to my male co-founders instead. So I had that firsthand experience. And then as a female investor, I also experienced what it was like being with other male investors and how they perceived female entrepreneurs versus male entrepreneurs. I think some of it's very primal. People like to support people who look and sound like themselves. So it's natural that men would want to support other men and women would want to cheer on other women. And that extends into, I think, ethnicity as well, right? And cultural and language bias and all of these things. But I think the entrepreneurs, I think what makes female entrepreneurs even more capable is their ability not only to multitask, to manage people well, but to have a multidimensional output. And we all know for social businesses, you have to think about the impact and finance in equal measure. And I think women generally have an empathetic competitive advantage, and that's also very primal, that lend themselves to being better prepared to be social entrepreneurs. And then again, with managing teams, whether it's virtual teams or local teams, and a lot of social businesses have extensions into emerging markets or into bottom of the pyramid or rural marketplaces. I think women have that foresight a little bit more. Because they're used to planning ahead in their personal lives and professional lives. And where I wish women would continue to be more assertive is in terms of how they present, how they ask for money, how much money they ask for. It's not rocket science, but I think there is still that a little bit of that stereotype, although the chasm is closing, that male entrepreneurs project maybe even a false confidence about what they can do, whether it's scale or financial return, or making big ideas come to life. And I think women just take a little bit more of a measured approach to thinking about things like scale. Not all women, and certainly not the women that come out of the Cartier Women's Initiative, because I think we give them coaching and mentoring on do better, do bigger, and we give them helps and skill sets around boot camp and financial services and mentorship about strategy and how to pitch. But this is where I think women can still help close the gap a little bit. And I think it's changing already from my generation to this generation. All three of these women, the way they pitched their businesses was with extreme confidence. They were very articulate. They knew the different dimensions of their business. And all of these women as CEOs were equally adept at talking about the impact and the finance and the team and the strategy, which is what you would want to see as an investor.
Great. Thank you, Dimple. And maybe from that, I will start off with Olga and then move on to Jennifer and Andrea, because you three are all actually in your capital journey, but in different stages of it. And I think, Olga, you're the earliest one. So maybe based on what Dimple have shared, what would you say is, so first of all, maybe share with us a little bit about sort of where you are in your capital journey, and then maybe to share with us a bit about the challenges and maybe also the opportunities that you face as a woman entrepreneur.
Yeah, like in terms of my business, we are still bootstrapping. We became a profitable company in May 2019. And so it makes it easier to continue to bootstrap. And still we are on this journey, trying to figure out when it would be better to fundraise. And however, this is because women in Russia facing a lot of problems with fundraising and challenges. Because, for instance, a recent study showed that the average investment in projects founded by women in Russia is on average 3 times less than in project founded by men. Moreover, the validation of the similar projects are 10 times less. Even everything becomes even more complicated because usually impact businesses overall struggle more to get fundraising, as it can be perceived potentially not so interesting for investment. And I think it is because a lot of investors consider impact as something that can be a potential barrier for the rapid growth or money making. So yeah, however, like I agree with Dimple that I don't think that we differ a lot from other entrepreneurs. So yeah, this is what I can say about it.
Great. Thank you, Olga. And we have an interesting question from Claudia. So maybe let me integrate that into our conversation now. Claudia had a thought around what you mentioned, Dimple, around it'd be interesting to do a pilot study or project where the company presents itself to the investor, who are mostly men, without revealing the gender, and simply as entrepreneur, and see the response of the investment industry. Dimple or others, have you seen such a study already being done, or project that has been in motion around this?
Yes, there is actually an HBS case study around this. I can't remember if it's focused on the entrepreneur or the investor, but there was a woman named Heidi Rosen who I think applied for a job as Harold Rosen. And the resume was the same, all of her academic work pedigree was the same. And this was more about hiring practices. They actually submitted it for various kinds of jobs in finance and other male-dominant industries. And not surprisingly, the Harold Rosen resume got called for an interview and the Heidi Rosen resume didn't. So imagine their surprise when it was Heidi Rosen that showed up. So that's at least one anecdotal thing. In terms of female entrepreneurs and fundraising, I think it's largely been anecdotal. There have been so many articles in Forbes, Fortune magazine, where people have shared their own stories and highlights. But that's only the women who want to share. How many women don't share about it, because they're embarrassed, or they don't want to admit that they're not doing well fundraising, and they can't maybe attribute it to gender bias or anything like that. But it would be interesting for Harvard indeed to do a case study on that.
Yeah, and there was a study that was done by INSEAD by a assistant professor, Matthew Lee, and he now has moved on to NYU, and he did do a study that was, I think, is not a very large study, so it was only, I think, if I remember correctly, maybe 25 entrepreneurs, and actually in his study, he found that for pitching impact businesses, that women had a slight advantage over men, because the investor actually favored the gender and the sense of empathy and some of the characteristics that you described earlier, Dimple. And so we're following his work closely at the Cartier Women Initiative, as you can imagine, to see whether he would expand the study and sort of do more work around the space. But that was one of the few studies out there that I've seen that specifically around impact entrepreneurship and around gender. So it was quite interesting. Maybe next I will move on to Jennifer. Maybe Jennifer, you can share with us a little bit about where you're on the capital journey and sort of also what you see as the challenges and opportunities as a woman impact entrepreneurs in this journey.
Yes. So as at our stage in the company today, we have recently raised a seed round, and so we have ourselves currently we have a team of 17 people and expect to grow to about 30 people early next year. We are already have a product fit in the Nordics is the market we are based. And our goal is now to expand into other countries in Europe, such as Germany, the UK, and other ones. And yeah, we have a great pipeline of customers and already well-known customers today. So showing that, yes, we have a fit on the product. And if I just look back, getting the seed round was the most difficult, was hard to get here. Mm-hmm. We have been, the first 3 years, we have been bootstrapping. So I started the company with my own savings. And later on, I focused on public funding, so equity-free money, everything from European grants, Danish grants, that is the country where we are at, or awards as the Cartier, have been the way of getting funded, and as well as Olga, through customers, right? Our customers have been a very great investor, you could say, as just the cash flow that comes from them. When trying to fundraise before, there where the challenges have come, the challenges I have experienced before is that being a social entrepreneur has labeled us as, we were not seen to be visionary or profitable. We were perceived more of an NGO and something we want to take care of the world, but just on the free time. So it was very difficult to raise that seed round. Before that, we have had some smaller rounds through an accelerator program or an angel program, angel round. But it was very hard to, very early on the process, despite the potential, despite the great testimonials, the great product we had, it was very hard to fundraise. We really had to, overperform, you could say, to be able to raise a seed round of the level we got it today. So the challenges have been mainly up until now to get this funding, to get this credibility, so that we would be seen as profitable, seen as somebody with potential, because that's one of the biases we have in our society. Women and other minorities are not perceived to be unlimited, have an unlimited potential. We are rather seen as somebody who needs to work hard and prove themselves in order to be eligible for something. In contrast, the advantage groups, they just need to show a good vision and themselves. And that's enough because they are perceived to have unlimited potential. And that's a fact in the workplace, in entrepreneurship, everywhere. So not being aware of that makes us choose certain people for funding earlier than others. So challenges today, I would say the challenge of any other entrepreneur, which is scaling the business, hiring the right people for the job so that we can actually keep building the right product and reach bigger markets. That's the challenges today. Advantages, I don't know. So that's, I would say, I would like to share. I don't know if you have any more specific questions on that front.
Something that you mentioned that I thought was really interesting and relates also to, what Dimple was talking about, when we are pitching and, involves language and communication. And of course, at the heart of your work at Develop Diverse is this idea of how to have language that doesn't create bias, basically, right? And so have you thought about doing anything in the space of how the communication between entrepreneurs and investor, or investor to entrepreneur? And if so, any ideas on your business around this problem specifically?
Yes, so we are in the long run we would like to investigate or get, every time there's a video call, right? Every time you have a video call, analyze the text that it was like the script of the video call, which could come across on what type of language the person has used, also the type of questions that have been asked, and the time and the space that it was given to the entrepreneur. And this would evaluate indeed the biases within any interview. So there is a research study that was done, even there is a TED Talk on that, where they were checking what type of questions female entrepreneurs versus male entrepreneurs were asked when pitching. And the women were asked questions to mitigate any risk on their businesses, and the men were more asked what's the potential, like more related to show the potential of the business. So that's how the type of biases have been shown and demonstrated in so many ways that is clear on. So one has to be very mindful the type of question that one is asking. And I would like to add, in terms of language, men, women might have different type of communication, given like women more communal, men more agentic, given how we have been raised and how we have been praised for being in our life. Like women have been praised to be more caring and nice, and men have been praised to be more strong and careless, right? Rather than caring, but more like just focusing on the business. And this has made that women and men will communicate in a different way. But this has nothing to do with the potential and the talent they have. So rather than telling men or women to change the way they talk, it's about understanding, redefining what is a successful entrepreneur, rather than women have to change. So women don't have to be fixed. It's about redefining what is success, and try to reduce biases when one is evaluating. As we said, men oversell themselves. Women might undersell themselves just because of the language they use, communal versus agentic. So rather than judging people by how they present, investigate the business the right way and ask the right questions, so that both of them get to answer the same type of questions and not different ones.
Yeah. Okay. And how about you, Andrea? Like, you are further down in the capital raising journey. Has your journey of capital raising evolved over time in terms of what you face as challenges and opportunities as a woman? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. So similarly to Olga and Jennifer, we are not too far away from the same process. We started bootstrapping, and we decided to bootstrap because at the beginning I wasn't connected to the ecosystem, to the VC's world and all the different accelerator programs and everything. I studied business administration, even though if I worked for many years in the engineering industry. And for me, it was clear if I wanted to create a business, it had to be profitable in a few months. So we just quit our jobs and said, okay, so we can have this runaway without any salaries for X months, and let's start this. And if not, we just move on with our lives if it doesn't work. So we started bootstrapping. In the business plan that we built, we knew we needed to reach break-even in the 4th month, more or less, and we were really lucky. And in the 3rd month, we were cash flow positive, but still we could grow very steadily, little by little. So we applied for some European Commission, the DH 2020 European grant, and one specific Spanish government grant, equity free, and we got those grants, and it was key to us. So in total, we got like 2 million euros in equity-free grants before raising our Series A, which we recently closed, and that is $6 million. And it helped us a lot to grow much faster than we could have done without those grants. And the main challenge during that, we didn't discard the option of raising money once I started in the ecosystem and I started participating in accelerator programs. I think you have to be very selective in the accelerator programs that you participate in, but it can also help you a lot. In our case, it helped us a lot, and Cartier's Women's Initiative is one of the best examples, and the program helped us a lot to measure our impact and to better being aware of the business and to explain it better to the investors, and that's super important. But also you have to be very selective because there is a lot of noise out there. And after participating in those programs, we decided that maybe it was a good idea to raise, but also we, even being cash flow positive, bootstrapping, good, I think good metrics. We are above 2 million euros as revenue now. We have 80% as operating margin, but still the message we were getting from investors was that we didn't grow faster enough compared to other businesses, and they wouldn't invest in us. Of course, there were other VCs that were interested, but in general, the main challenge I found is making these venture capitalists to understand that founders and tech companies that have a mission that goes beyond financials, that have proven to have a great performance. They are a great opportunity, but because on the top of making the world a better place, these companies are more resilient. They attract better talent. They provide a better financial return for investors. It pays off, and I've seen that in many cases. And I think investors should ask themselves that in addition to quartile returns, what are the measurable outcomes in social inclusion, job creation, the reduction of environmental footprint, and it will bring them financial results as well as social and environmental impacts. So the main challenge for us was exactly that, to make them understand that this is very important. And I'm sure, like, for example, in our case, I think we have more, like, better talent than many other companies that are not impact oriented, because we attract people that are really concerned about the planet and that they have a special values, that are really strong values. We have a strong culture, and that reflects in the results of the company.
And Andrea, amongst your investor base, is it mostly men or mostly women, or you have a good balance?
Our investor?
Yeah.
They only have one woman in the whole portfolio.
I see. So you're the only woman in their whole portfolio?
We are two. Before I joined, they only had one.
I see.
And if you go into their website, it's like all men.
I see.
It's true that the main partner is a woman.
Yeah.
And they invested in a lot of impact companies, and it proved them that the best companies, the ones that are bringing them more return, are the impact companies. So they are really aware about that.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Well, we have a great question here from Lily in the audience. She was wondering how we can involve more men to the debate. And the fact remains that at the moment, men are still setting a lot of the agenda. So how do we let them see the biases and stereotypes? And so, Andrea, I think since you mentioned, like, your lead investors are men and they have many, was there anything that you did differently during your conversation or communication with them that you felt specifically tries to, guide them away from bias or stereotype, or actually they were pretty agnostic already?
I think they were really aware of the impact part. The diverse part, I'm not that sure. But also that's something that I would like to mention. For us, it also proved it is a competitive advantage. My industry is male dominated, and and we have 50-50% balance between women and men in our company. And I think that's better against my competitors and other companies in the industry that prove that is an advantage, because we connect more with the customer, we understand a little better the business. I don't know, these things that Dimple was mentioning before about being more empathetic and being more sensitive to certain aspects of the business. I think that helped us a lot, and not only in terms of gender diversity, also in the background of the people. We have over 10 nationalities, and that's a very competitive advantage compared to other companies in my industry. And the venture capital, I think they will see that as well, because we are a special company in their portfolio in terms of diversity, and I think they will be able to see how good it is to bring other profiles into the company. The venture capital or lead investor, they are, most of them, all the same profile within the company. The main partner is a woman, but all the rest are mainly male, the same age, same university, same backgrounds. And I think I used to work in a company like this before founding Rated Power, and I've seen working in both companies how different it is. And I think that's really important to be aware of.
And how about you, Dimple? I mean, amongst the investor base and your peers, investor, mostly men. Tell us a bit about your experience in this.
Yeah, no, I think it's super important to integrate men into the conversation. And I would encourage both entrepreneurs and investors, you're never too old to have even a peer mentor, but also an advocate. And I think it's really important for all of us to find, let's be honest, male advocates. So depending on where you are in your career arc, you're always looking for that next level. And the difference between a mentor and an advocate is one of activism, right? So your advocate really pushes for you, thinks about you when they hear somebody's looking to fund something around climate or D&I, or keeps you top of mind when there's a board seat coming available and recommends you for the board. So I think it's really important to find a male advocate because, as Lily rightly said, a lot of the people are setting the agenda. They're also making some of the decisions, and they also hold most of the seats and most of the money. So find that advocate for yourself. The other thing I would say is, I think in 2021, I have to say, I'm leaning into my gender and my ethnicity in a way that I've never done before. And I would encourage every woman on this call to be able to do it. So definitely find male advocates. But I also think for a long time, women felt like they had to be one of the guys, whether you're an entrepreneur or even in the academic classroom or in the athletic field, certainly in the boardroom. Now, I think it is a competitive advantage to be a woman, certainly a woman of color. And the thing about social entrepreneurs is you're also usually bringing a dimension. Every company wants to do better on diversity and inclusion. Every company wants to do better on sustainability. Every company wants to do better on even mental health now, right? It is all at the surface level of people's political and corporate agendas. So I would encourage people to lean in with a little bit more confidence because you should be now approaching it from a position of strength. And so, bring out your femininity when you talk to people and don't be afraid to say, well, I'm a female CEO. And did you know that statistically female CEOs outperform their male counterparts in, SME businesses, in hedge fund, in private equity firms? I mean, now we actually have data, right? So you can actually source and present this data. So lean into it, but find that male advocate because the percentages are still not in our favor. And so find the people who are in charge of decision making so that you're top of mind for that next last bucket of money or the last board seat or whatever your career aspiration is.
I would like to add something. Is there space for that?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yes, I would like to add that it's important as well to focus on the right investors. I can see as myself working on the field of diversity how wanting it doesn't change numbers, but rather law and regulations are what shift the numbers the fastest. And today, LPs, the limited partners that all the VC funds are being funded by, are the ones that, for branding purposes, who cares, right? For branding purposes, are requiring that their own, the people handling their own money have a focus on diversity. And this is making that more and more auditing, like you could say, companies or VCs auditing companies are focusing on helping VCs be audited for diversity. So there are programs for diversity VCs to help them evaluate how diversity driven they are, how focused they are on that. And this is actually forcing the VC funds to focus on diverse-led startups and and focus on reaching out to women and all other backgrounds of which are not the advantaged one or the most represented today. So right. I think law and regulations are still, unfortunately, the main drivers of change. We have been talking about the SDGs for 10 years, 15 years. Nothing has changed, right? The numbers are not changing. Women can do as much as they wish. There is as much as we can do. Of course, we have to keep talking and keep being loud, but regulations need to change. And quotas is the number that starts shifting the numbers, because quotas force organizations to make structural changes. And that's what change. We need that.
Yeah, Elena, Eleni, in the chat just actually made a very interesting comment relating to what you described, Jennifer, which is that we'll have a huge wealth transfer in the next few years, and 60% of the asset owners of the world will be women, and so this actually really, drives at the point that you were making around LPs demanding from the GPs and any investment manager that they have for diversity and inclusion criteria for better representation. Both in terms of investment and investors, and also investment managers all across. So yeah.
Yeah, and I have to say, Jennifer, I know you said it's branding, but I mean, we do it in-house, and I can say it's not because of branding, it's because as a woman of color, I have no problem asking a white GP, who are the women in your partnership roles or partner track positions, and how many female CEOs do you have in your portfolio? So some people who, it may be disingenuous from some LPs, but we're an LP at Anthos, and we're integrating D&I metrics into our LPA agreements with our GPs. And I just recommended to one of our funds that they think about integrating D&I into their term sheets when they look at for companies. So I think
that's what changed the numbers.
There's social pressure, there's regulatory pressure, there's legal pressure. So you need all this confluence pressure to happen, but it is happening. And so, everything rolls downhill. So you need people with leverage to lead on the people who have leverage with companies who have, so you need the whole chain to work.
Yes. For sure. Yes. And I certainly have met many women entrepreneurs that are, successful in raising their round. And then they specifically target and try to look for investors who are women to be on their cap tables. And so that is also another way of engaging and creating a greater diverse investor base. Yeah. How about you, Olga? In this conversation in Russia, what have you done to engage more of the men in the conversation and bring them in your work?
I think that maybe that I have a male co-founder who is actually a public advocate for gender diversity in IT. Helps because he's a famous IT guy, because he's a founder of programming language, was officially preferred by Google for Android developing. And he's for a couple of years, he has been advocating in every conference about gender diversity, and the fact that we need to include more women into IT. So I think that it helps because he is a person who has a lot of respect among males in the IT sphere. And I think educating helps to change things and to look at a different angle. So this is one of the things I can share.
Oh, that is fantastic. I think this speaks to what Dimple mentioned earlier, to find an advocate, and if your advocate is your co-founder, that is pretty good, I would say. Yeah, maybe Jennifer and Andrea, do you want to share rather your co-founder is male or female, or what was the process of finding them? Yeah.
In my case, it's funny because they are so aware of these micro-machisms and this. When anyone has a not nice reaction to, we got that, and we had one situation with one investor who asked us in the first meeting in front of the whole team of the VC team. There were 5 people of them. They asked me if I was a partner of one of them, apart from the CEO, and it was really very uncomfortable situation, and they are the first to jump into them, and really they are so aware of this, and I love it because they identify the minimum thing they can see, they identify it really quickly and they fight it, and I love that because it also translated to the rest of the team.
Yes.
And we have most of our directors, the lead positions are filled by female leads. They are women. And we have like really like, apart from the three of us, the most senior level people are women. And that's really powerful. I think it's really important to see other men, as they were commenting in the chat, Lily, because they need to be aware, not only to listen to panels, and they need to feel it in their skin and to feel the pain also. And it's incredible to see how, for example, I didn't study engineering, but I know a lot about engineering because I've been working in engineering for over 10 years. When every time I get this question of, are you an engineer? And they also answer like, no, but she knows more than you about engineering, or no, but she's the CEO and she's taking all the decisions. And I love that. I love how protective they got. They are having babies, female babies, and they are so convinced also with their wives, and they are the first generation, I think, because their parents weren't so aware. And I want to mention also that it's really important in my home, in my family. My mom, she's a really powerful role model to me, and she's been really successful, and she conciliated really well her personal and professional life. My dad as well, but I have a lot of strong women in my family. Some of them, my aunts, didn't work because they didn't want to get married and stop working, so they worked, they didn't get married, sorry. I have a lot of strong examples. So for me, it wasn't a problem when I went out there, when I started working in the real life. I couldn't think that being a woman was something different. I started working in this industry, energy, engineering, and we were only three women in the company I used to work at. They decided not to hire more women for a while because it was problematic, I don't know what. And I also suffered for many situations as country manager in Brazil, as a young female women director. And it is really, really, really important to explain this to your friends, to your partner, to your family, to expose those situations, to comment those situations, what we are going through, and to see how common this is and how wrong it is, right?
Yeah. Great. And maybe the last question we have about 2 more minutes before our session is over. There's a great question from Aileen. And she wanted to know, what do you think is still missing in terms of support that woman needs to grow their business? So maybe I start with Jennifer.
Yes, I just briefly answer a question. The question is like, support is network. Network is what I would say is the one that we have the list, because the network it's usually networks people that look like you, right? People reach out to you because they feel attracted to you based on affinity bias, right? We feel like talking to those that look like us. So because the investment network is still major male-dominated, or business networks, so having helping us increase our network, it's a big win. And Cartier was a great initiative for that. How do we get our network also peer network, not only investment network, but peer network, which also gets challenging to find those other people that go through the same challenges that you go, and help you understand that's okay, right? These challenges are a bit different, but they are part of everyday businesses as well. So I would say network is the biggest one on my side, and mentoring, as also Dimple mentioned, mentor advocates. I try always to have my own mentor and advocate, and as well my peers or my team members. I try everybody to have their own network and their own mentor, because this helps you grow and helps you go out of your comfort zone constantly, and help you grow faster than if you do it by yourself.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. It looks like we're out of time. It's exactly 1:50. And so thank you, everyone, for joining us and hearing our story of all of the fellows within the Cartier Women Initiative, and also Dimple, who is part of our community supporting women impact entrepreneurs as an ex-entrepreneur herself. So thank you, everybody. It was such a pleasure to be here. And I hope you have a great rest of the conference with the EBPA.
Thank you, Andrea.
Everyone.
Indeed.